Remembering. Okay. Understood. Okay, so most of you spoke about storage and recollection. Let's get back to this. Now, you realize that memory has a component of storing and recollecting. Storing information now and recollecting at a later point of time whenever it is required. So during preparation, you might want to store this information, and then during the examination, you want to recollect. I guess this is the reason. This is the reason why you want to store and recollect. I hope this is clear for you. Okay. Now let's look at what exactly is the problem with memory. What exactly is the problem with memory? Now, this summarizes the problem with memory because you are not able to remember what you're supposed to remember, right? The single line problem is you are not able to remember what you are supposed to remember. Now, if you look at it, within the first 1 hour, you're losing 56% of the information is lost. This is a retention. So, which means 56% is lost. Within 1 day, 66% is lost, right? This creates a problem. Let's say every day you're covering 100% of syllabus. Now, end of the day, you're losing 60%, you're losing 50%, which actually is quite dangerous because it's like 3 days of work is required to complete 1 day of work because you're losing information. 100, it becomes 50. Now, 200, it becomes 70. 300, when you do it, only then it becomes 100. So, which is you need 3 days to complete 1 day of work because you're continuously losing. You're continuously, diluting what you're learning on a daily basis, which is like walking with a bucket with holes, bucket full of water with holes, right? This is the problem. Now, how do we address this? I'll explain you the detailed mechanics. But I'll just summarize it in a single slide and I'll come back to that at a later point of time. Now, this is exactly how we address here, where for every point where you tend to forget, like let's say after 1 hour, after 1 day, after 6 days, we have clubbed it with some controls. Okay, you'll be forgetting after 1 hour. So let's revise after 5 minutes. You'll be forgetting after 1 day. Let's revise for 20 minutes. You'll be forgetting after 48 hours. Let's revise 10 minutes on the next day. After 6 days, let's revise it on Saturday or the sixth day. So this is exactly how we have created controls. And as of now, this is clearly the world's best memory technique in the context of an exam like CA. I'm not saying this is the only technique. I'm not saying this is the best technique for all formats of learning. No, in the context of CA exams, there is no other technique which works better than this because it is practically proven. And I'll show you the case studies how it works. But you have to understand, to curb this losses, you have to do something actively. Do not wish, pray, and hope that you'll automatically able to remember. Okay, Chyawanprash won't work. You need something like this where you're systematically and periodically revising, revisiting, so that you'll be able to retain longer. Okay, this is the checkpoint for the losses. Now let's dwell deeper into the conceptual part of how memory works, because this is the first time where I'm sharing the background information. Normally we share only these 2 slides, but right now we believe you are matured enough to understand what is happening. So with that confidence, I'm sharing you further. Okay. In terms of your brain, you have two systems. It's called, I would say, system 1 and system 2, or if you know this book called Thinking Fast and Slow. How many of you read this book called Thinking Fast and Slow or heard about it? Thinking Fast and Slow. Anyone? Thinking Fast and Slow, heard of this term? I read it. Nope. Good. Thinking Fast and Slow. Anyone? No wonder you have memory problems. No wonder. Okay, cool. So that's a fantastic book. At some point of time, you should read it. That's a fabulous book. So this concept is actually picked up from that particular book. So when you have two systems, the first system is something which thinks really fast. Okay, it thinks really fast and it thinks unconsciously. Let's say you're a very skilled driver. You kind of drive without putting in stepwise consciousness, right? It happens automatically. At some point of time, it happens automatically. And this works for everyday decisions. It is very random, fast, and it happens automatically. This is what it is. Now, there is something called thinking, the slow system, or the system two. Now, this is conscious. You carefully, right now, if I say, at some point of time, the way I used to speak has to be is like this. Like I have to think very clearly, very consciously, put in a lot of effort. It was a complex process for me to speak. But over a period of time, I was able to maintain the same reliability with this process. So you need some level of ease to move from system 2 to system 1. Having said that, there are still some decisions which would always stay in system 2, which would never come to system 1. So you have to differentiate between what are the components which you need to process in your system 1 and what are the components which you need to process in system 2. The reason why I'm telling you is not all aspects are to be remembered in the same format. Not all decisions are to be taken in the same format. You need to have clear-cut distinction about how to deal with what. Okay, so this I need you to keep this in mind, because you have to think fast in certain aspects, you have to think slow in certain aspects. The reason why I'm saying this is extremely important in your examination. When you're answering certain things, you have to slow down and carefully. Let's say when you're reading the question paper, especially the last part of the question, it is important for you to use system 2, because it is a complex decision for you to process information. It's not about the speed. When you're answering, when you're actually writing the paper, yes, you can think fast. So there are multiple modes of which are required at different contexts, but this is what you have to understand at the initial level. This is system 1 and system 2. Please remember this. As I said, at the backend information, you don't have to buy hard this, but I want you to reasonably understand what is happening. Next, in terms of storage, we actually spoke at length about what is memory to the extent we have spoken. And in terms of storage, you need to understand there is a clear-cut distinction between memory and storage. Now I'm using something which you can correlate to. If you go and open your mobile phone settings, you can see this, right? So you have this option of, I would say, storage and memory when you go into device care. So it is saying storage is this, memory is this. So when I say storage is something where you store things permanently, like the hard disk. Now, when I say memory is more likely like a working memory. Now I'll use the term working memory once again. So storage, you take something and store it there. You're not using it very frequently. You're not accessing it on a daily basis. When you talk about memory is something which you have to access on a continuous basis. Storage, it need not be accessed on a continuous basis. It is long-term in nature. So when you have to operate on a daily basis, you need to keep your working memory free. Unfortunately, a lot of students don't have this component. That is the reason why they get clogged when new information comes into the picture. Because whenever you read something, you should process it and push it to the long-term memory instead of storing in the working memory. When this happens, you'll be confused about what to remember and what to retain. So everything get messed up and there will be a dilution. Okay, this is one more problem. Again, the concept is slightly deep, but I want you to pay attention. You'll be able to, I would say, get some level of understanding. You'll be able to get some level of understanding as you proceed forward. But for now, stay with me. I'll be able to keep improving your clarity as we go proceed forward. Okay. Are we good till this point? Are we good? Are we good till this point? Shall I proceed? Shall I proceed? Are you following this? Yes or no? I just need quick responses. Are you following this? Are you following what we're discussing so far? Perfect. Perfect. Now, this is very important, guys. This is very important. This is very important and relevant for you. When you learn something, I just told you, when you learn something passively, I just mentioned the same thing, right? If you have to learn something passively, you'll end up storing only 50% or less than that. If you see this, even 50% won't happen. So all the passive learning material, okay? Whenever you learn something passively, lecture, when I'm talking, if you're only listening passively, if you're not involving, if you're not processing, if you're not thinking through, most of the things which I teach will go away. Reading, audio visual, which is your classes, okay? Classes, books. So students are normally learning using the most passive and most inefficient ways of learning. It is very clearly established that for you to learn something, for you to store something for the longer duration, it is important to move into an active way of preparation. Your preparation has to be active. Now, when I say active, one which can be done is practice during, which is called writing. Okay, and even writing practice would do. One of the simplest and easiest way is to keep writing. That is the reason why we'll add a lot of elements in the process. Let's say the day end revision, previous day revision, midday revision, all of this we make you write so that it involves higher level of cognition and you will be able to retain what you're supposed to retain. If you're just going through lectures, going through videos, that is not going to help. That is the damn reason why, even after spending hours and hours and hours in lectures, we are not going anywhere. Let's say somebody has spent 3 to 4 attempts. Are you serious? Like four attempts for 4 papers? Like, would it really require that amount of time? Now, the reason is you are putting in hard work, but your hard work is inefficient. It's going waste. So please make sure these are reasonably good sources. The sources are good, but I'm talking about the process. Make sure you either do this, you either practice doing or teach others. This is one more concept which we would like to elaborate upon. But it has to move from passive to active. Your mode of preparation, your mode of learning should move from passive to active. It has to happen for sure. Without that, it is almost impossible for you to clear unless you keep doing over a period of time, and it gets so loaded that you will have to clear at some point of time. That is how people clear after multiple items. But a very practical and a simplified way of learning things is you kind of make it active. Okay, so I want all of you to type this. I want all of you to remember this. Please type passive to active. Please type passive to active. As you're typing, I'm also making you move from passive to active. Passive is you're just listening. What is active? You're typing. You're writing. Okay, type this word called passive to active. Just type that single sentence. Passive to active. I want all of you to do it. Okay, thanks for doing this. So this is one thing which you remember at any point of time, there has to be an element of writing. There has to be an element of active preparation. Okay, this is one more thing which I wanted to talk about. Let's move to the other part. As we are proceeding forward, I'll share more details which you'd like to understand in terms of memory mechanics. Okay, so here, if you look at it, there are multiple components. We realized your revision is largely linked to your mindset component, because unless you because we spoke about 7 different steps, but when you talk about mindset here, your revision and mindset are closely related because the same component of the brain works here. Okay. So unless you pay attention, the retention won't improve. Better the attention, better the retention. So I cannot break down, or I cannot separate these two components. We have to work on your mindset. We have to work on your revision. Both has to happen. Only one is not going to solve. Okay. So please understand it requires a far more fundamental change than what you're thinking. There is no one memory technique which will solve all the problems in your life. So you have to understand, you have to think, structure your thoughts, and most importantly, slightly alter your mindset to a different frame in order to remember. It is not going to happen automatically, and superficial solutions are not going to work. Okay. So mindset and your revision are very, very closely related because it has the same cognitive function. Okay. Now I want you to pay some attention here. Okay. So this is exactly how memory gets stored. So this is something which we use as a reference for you to understand. Now, when you look at it, first is when you get an input. What is environmental input? Right now, what you're listening from me, what you're listening, like you're seeing something on the screen, you're listening. So both your visual and auditory is sensory input, or I would say environmental input, which will get stored in your sensory memory. As I said, information stored from experiences to senses. This is where I want you to understand. This happens for everyone. Let's say when you go to a class, okay, you are experiencing classes through senses. Now, when I say when you're reading from a book, when you read, you're engaging your eyes. When you listen to audio, let's say an audio book, you're engaging your ears. When you're attending a class, eyes plus ears. Okay, so this is exactly how you're engaging various senses, right? Here one and two. So this is exactly how you are engaging different senses. Now, normally there is no uniform rule because we teach. I kind of teach this topic to faculties at various programs. We call it learning styles. So different students have different styles of learning. You need to find what works best for you. But in general, no matter what your style is, if you have to really process the entire information, including the sentence which I'm talking about, this is the game changer. This I would have to mark at least a couple of stars or even more. We need to attend to process information, the same sensory input. Now, when you ask me why is the same student or why are two students sitting in the same class capturing the information differently? Even the 50 plus students who are sitting here are still capturing the information differently. Now, why is it happening? One, purely because of the attention level. Probably there's somebody is still watching this from their office. Somebody is working and still probably having their earpods and sitting in the office. Somebody is traveling. There are different distractions, both internal, external, physical, whatever it is. So because of which you have differentiated attention levels. So the level of input which can come to you purely depends on your attention. Again, when I say more the attention, more the retention, this is one. So when you put in attention, you will be able to trigger working memory. Now, if attention is not there, it is lost. You will lose the sensory inputs. Let's say I'm giving you content worth 100. If you're paying attention, you'll capture 70 to 80. Without attention, 70 to 80 is lost. You'll only capture 10. Okay. So first part is the moment you start capturing information through senses, it is important for you to pay attention. Only then some component of this is transferred to working memory. Now, what happens in working memory? Working memory has a process of consciously breaking down and synthesizing the information, right? So when you store this, let's say when I said something, this sentence, the sentence which I said is not automatically going to store in your mind, right? In the same format. You kind of process it, you kind of break it down, and your memory works on it, and then out of which an insight could be stored, right? It is not being carried forward in the same format. Now, Zoom is officially recording it in the same format without making any changes. But you are not doing it the way Zoom is doing it, right? So, hope you understand. How many of you are getting this point, guys? How many of you are getting this? Because this is important for me to know. How many of you are getting this? This is reasonably complex. This is reasonably complex. Okay, let me get your attention. See, what we are trying to understand is at a base level, how memory is working. How memory is working at a base level is what we are trying to figure out. Okay, this is what it is. Now, how would memory work? How would memory work? As you're listening to me, you need an input, right? Let's say, let's talk about photos in your phone. How are photos stored? Only when you click it to the camera, right? Click it to the camera. Camera is an eye, so it takes sensory input and then it gets stored. Now, even for you, how is information stored? Now you're watching me. Probably your mind is processing some images. Next time when you hear the word call him live school or Himakant, probably this image get pops up because that is how your eyes are capturing. Now, apart from that, what is happening? You're listening to me, including this particular sentence. Your ears are capturing. Now, video is being captured, audio is being captured, video and audio. Now, in this context, the video is not as important as audio because you're trying to process information based on what I'm saying, not based on what I'm doing. I'm not dancing here. Probably it looks like that, but the whole idea is you're trying to process what I'm saying, right? Now, if you realize this meeting is getting recorded, you can see the icon here, right? It's getting recorded. Now, when it is getting recorded, it is recording things as it is because it's a machine. It's recording things as it is. But now, in your mind, you're not recording it as it is, right? You're processing it. Are you able to spot the difference? You won't record it like a phone, like all the things. Because when I ask you, I'm sure you cannot repeat the entire 40, 50 minutes. You'll only be able to recollect or capture some part of it. So this is called processing. Now, this phenomena of where you're recording a few things is called processing. Is it understood? Right? Is it understood? Now, how much you record, how much you capture depends on the level of attention. Now, when you are listening to me, when you're only present here right now, when you're listening to me, the level of attention is very high so that it captures more information. When you're not attentive, when you're not attentive, let's say I'm speaking to you, you're thinking of something or you're talking to someone, the input is restricted. The input which is coming from the source is restricted. Now, this is one external distraction, internal distraction. I'm trying to teach you something. You're hungry, you're angry, you're sad, you're pissed off, you're excited, probably you're waiting for your dinner date. So different things are happening. So there is internal blockage. Now, when there is internal blockage, attention is reduced. I say the same thing, you listen to the same thing, but there is some dilution in terms of storage. So that is the reason why we keep talking about focus block slots. If the focus is not there, even if you put in time, even if you put in quantity, it doesn't get captured. There is loss. Is this clear? Is this clear? Are we good? Okay. Let me get back to the slide. All right. So we have completed it till this point. We have understood it to this extent. So unless you have attention, you would not be able to process the information. So this is where the game starts. Like, okay, somehow you decided to study in focus block slots and you have decided to engage your attention. Once you engage your attention, your memory starts working, or the working memory starts processing your information. But the problem with this is it has very limited space and duration. I'll tell you why. I spoke about attention. By the time you're thinking about attention, this world called attention, before you store, I said something else. I said something else. I said working memory. I said consciousness. I said processing. When I'm throwing words at you, your mind cannot process everything continuously. That is the reason why there is limited space and duration. So although it looks like you're listening to me continuously, it's very hard for you to capture everything. It's very hard for you to mind to capture everything. That is the reason why it only stays for a limited space and duration. So that is the reason why you really need to know what to capture and what to skip, what to capture, what to skip. Okay. So this is the process where the encoding comes into picture. Transferring information to a form that can be stored. So when I'm saying this, you understand computer system only talks in binary language, right? So everything is stored in the form of zeros and ones. No matter what you say, it gets converted to 0 to 1. I hope you understand this basic sixth class. People teachers taught us rest. Computer can only understand zeros and ones. So binary language. Now, even your mind can understand things in a particular way. So this process is called encoding. When I'm giving you a sensory input in a particular format, how your mind decodes it, how your mind encodes it. Let's use the word encodes it, encoding. Now, only when you do the encoding properly, it goes into the long-term memory. It is largely infinite and permanent. And once it goes into the long-term memory, you can use it for your working memory. Now, this is where I'll explain the exam and it from the exam perspective. Now, let me reframe everything here. So one, okay, this is where you're studying. Okay, let's say you're studying from ICAI material. Now, because of your 70% attention, you're losing 30% already here. You lost 30% here, gone. Now, out of the 70%, since it is a very limited duration, you are able to work in a particular way. Effectively, when it comes to working memory, you're able to store 50%. But encoding is a very complex process. Now, encoding happened in a particular way, but you're able to store only 30% in the long-term memory. Now, this is how we stored it. On the day of the exam, you read the questions through your sensory memory, okay? Question paper through sensory memory, through eyes, and then you're activating your working memory. Now, when you're activating your working memory, the answer to the question, you have to retrieve, you have to recall, okay? You have to recall from your long-term memory. Now, how would you recall? Only when it is already stored. Let's say you thinking that Ind AS 116 is completed versus it actually getting stored. The problem is you think Ind AS 116 is done and dusted. You think it is done. You think it is stored in your long-term memory. But the problem is it never got stored. Now, when it never got stored, it's like you threw something into your wardrobe, it fell on the way, it did not go in, and you're assuming all this while that it got stored. On the day of the occasion, when you have to attend your cousin's wedding, you open the wardrobe and you're searching for it, but then it's not there because it fell on the way. You did not throw it hard enough, or the cupboard was not open, and you never cared to check whether it is stored or not. Now, this is exactly what is happening, where you think you know a concept, But then on the day of the exam, when there is a trigger, you know that you are prepared for Ind AS 116. But when you want to recall, it's not coming. It's not coming because it's not there. It's not there. Even if it's there, it's not properly organized. So it's taking longer time, or it is only giving you limited information. Now, how many of you can correlate to this? How many of you can correlate to this? How many of you can correlate to this? Please type me. If you're able to correlate to what I'm saying, please type me. So effectively, if you want to increase your memory, that bullshit motivation anyways won't work. You understand? And if you're attending any one of the session, by the end of the session, you know that that is not the solution. So remove that. And some useless memory techniques are not going to work. First of all, you have to fix few things. When I say sensory memory, information stored from experience. Now let's talk about it. Environmental input. Now what is it? Books, classes, or let's say discussions. Books, classes, discussions are the three formats, right? So you have to make sure at the input level you have the right inputs. Useless inputs will waste your time. So input level, you have to put in attention to start with the right input. This is done. Now, when you are capturing these inputs into your sensory memory, you have to engage your attention. Okay. So one is the sources has to be sorted from where you are learning. Source of learning has to be systematic, very, very systematic, and it has to meet your style. It's not about it going good or bad. It has to be suitable to you. It has to be compatible with your style of learning. It has to be working for you, and you have to check it, test it, and by listening to one chapter or one video and then taking the complete decision. So this is the input. And the second part, attention. Now when you have to pay attention, like the way you're sitting here, right? When you have to pay attention, you have to make sure there are no zero distractions. Now when you say zero distractions, there are two things. One is internal, the other one is external. Okay. External distractions are easy. So you can go and lock yourself, or go to an offline ecosystem, or go to a library, or run away from the regular disturbances. External issues are very easy to fix and sort. Now, what is the bigger problem? The bigger problem is your internal distractions. When I say internal distractions, it could be based on the past or based on the future. Present, there won't be any distractions. Past and future will distract your present. How many of you agree to this? There are no direct distractions in the present, right? If you look at it, probably you're hungry, you'll eat something. So generally, most of the distractions are linked to the past or present, past or future. Past and future will screw up your present. How many of you agree to this? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? So when this is happening, I would say this can be fixed, because you understand, right? Because you're not operating in the present. When you're talking about the past and the future, it is very easy for us to fix it. Is it clear? Is this clear, all of you? Right? So these distractions have to be removed. Again, you should not deal with them on a real-time basis. You deal with them much before. And it's a past and future. They're not happening in the present. Much before you get started, you have to remove that. Let's say I start the session, and then I think of one random session which probably did not do well. And now in this session, I'm thinking about that session. I'm an idiot. So don't become an idiot where you have messed up one past attempt while you're sitting to study for this attempt. You're still thinking about it. Idiots don't deserve to become CS. I have to be very brutal here, because you're not getting the point, although it is repeated multiple times. Now you get it. Now it's a huge vaccine shot, so that I want to inject it through thick skins. I don't have a choice to do it, given the less number of days left out for the exam. So please process it much before you sit to study. Take out some time. If you're not able to do it, go and meet a counselor, go and meet a psychologist, go and meet a psychiatrist, go and meet your best friend. Remove that once for all. Remove that. Don't deal with the same idiotic problem every single day. Okay. Otherwise, we're not able to fix it. How would you go ahead and spend your next 70, 80 days in a very focused manner. Okay, remove your internal distraction once for all, whether it is linked to past and future. They can be removed with a couple of conversations, just one or two conversations, one including depression. We have done it. We have done it. Just find someone. If you want us to do it, we'll do it for you. If you want someone to do it, just get it done. It doesn't matter who does it. The only point is how fast can you get it done? Okay, we are removing this so that you're paying attention. Done. Now, next, working memory. This is super important. Working memory depends on your internal intelligence. When I say internal intelligence, okay. Let's say, uh, had you done some research about mechanics of memory much before the session started? If you have done, let's say, 30 minutes to 40 minutes of research, or if you have read that book Thinking Fast and Slow already, wouldn't it be more effective than what it is? Would you not be able to capture more? Would you not be able to, engage better? Yes or no? Had you done something which is already there? Had you done something which is already relevant to the topic? If you know more about this, would you not make it more easy for you? Would you not make it more effective for you? Yes or no? Right? So this is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, this is why we talk about index mapping as a context. When you're looking at a bunch of random words all coming and hitting you, some level of contextualization, some level of familiarity, some level of familiarity is extremely important. Contextualization and familiarity is very, very, very important. Now, how does that happen? How does that happen? You need to understand the game. You need to know what is it expected from you. You need to know what are the components where you need to be ready. Let's say it's very simple, right? What are the various aspects? What are the various things which you should be ready with? Now it's very, very simple. Let's say you're preparing for three subjects. Now, at least for the three subjects, know the macro index, chapter one, chapter two, chapter three, chapter four, and then slightly get into the unit level index. And you should build a framework in your mind. So whenever you're studying something, it will be easy to remember things. Whenever you're studying something, isn't it easy for you to remember things? Yes or no? Right? So it is always important to keep enhancing your internal intelligence related to the subject of CA. It need not be something random, but at least linked to the subject of CA. It is important to enhance your internal intelligence. Okay. So when you focus on this part, more amount of information will be transferred to your working memory. More amount of information will be transferred to your working memory, transferred from your working memory to your long-term memory. Now, if you bring things into long-term memory, you're safe because this memory is infinite and permanent. Okay. So this is a separate process. How do you retrieve once information stored, you can bring it back. Let's say once you keep things in your cupboard, once things get into your wardrobe, then you can pull it out at any point of time. But at a fundamental level, you have to make sure you at least store it, right? So these are the two things which you have to work upon. Encoding in a way where most of the working memory is transferred to the long-term memory. Okay, these are the various stages, starting from first stage. This is stage one. This is stage two. This is stage three. This is stage four. This is stage five. This is stage six. Like when you want to fix your memory, this is exactly how you can fix your memory at a fundamental level. So I hope you understand. That is the reason why we talk a lot about focus and attention continuously. Every stage, when you bring in that attention, automatically a lot of things will be sorted at every level. Let's say here, if you give 100, if you improve focus here, by the time it comes here, it will be 90. By the time it comes here at 80, 70, you can retrieve up to 60. Now, the 60% will be reflected in your 60% marks. Now, it becomes 40, you'll get 40. This becomes 35, you'll get 35. This is what happens. Now, this is the simple difference. You do the same process. Now, I hope now it is making sense why you're scoring only 37 instead of 45, although you know that the work you invested is linked to 45 to 50, right? So it's not about the quantum of work, but effectively on the day of the exam, how are you able to retrieve the information? So if the concept is clear until now, please type. The concept is clear until now, please type clear. Okay, thanks for the confirmation. Let me move further. Right. So whatever I have explained in the diagrammatic format, I'm showing it in a text format because now it will be easy for you to correlate. If I show you before, it won't, but it is important for you to read this because text is far more detailed and clear when everything has become obvious. Okay. Now I'll take you through this. Now let me use the pen so that it will be easy for you. Yeah. Point number one, we experience our environment through the senses. Okay. Environment is experienced through our senses. This is called sensory memory. Now, when you have attention, this is called attention. Sensory memory plus attention transfers the data into working memory. Okay. Now, at working memory, you have to do the conscious processing. So this is where I spoke about the fluidic intelligence or the internal intelligence. So from working memory, you need conscious processing. From sensory memory, you just need attention. You need conscious processing. It is limited and fleeting. The long-term memory is where information is stored permanently. It is infinite, but to transfer information from working memory to long-term memory, we need to rehearse and retire this information repeatedly until it's secure. It's not easy because you have to be very, very pushy about how you can move this working memory to the long-term memory. It's not easy. That is the reason why you have to use method that's created knowledge schema. Now, what is a knowledge schema? Because let's say how do I capture this information? I had to create a knowledge schema. What is a knowledge schema? 5-step preparation framework. Now, anything in terms of helping a student clear the exam, we broke it down into 5 steps. One is mindset, one is routine, one is syllabus completion, one is revision, one is exam presentation. Anything and everything I learn, it will go into one of these brackets. Okay, within mindset. Now let's talk about clarity. Let's talk about confidence. Let's talk about courage. So there are various sub things which we focus. Let's talk about attention. Now routine. Let's talk about consistency. Let's talk about productivity. Let's talk about efficiency. So in each and every bracket, we kind of add more and more information. But we created a knowledge schema where everything gets captured very beautifully. This is exactly how you have to understand so that things stay in the long term and the memory keeps expanding at any point of time. So you need to know at every stage of learning, memory can be lost. Sensory stage, as I said, working memory stage and long-term memory stage. So memory, you keep losing it. That is the reason why you have to make sure it is stored in a particular format. Okay, this is one thing which you need to clearly understand. Now, in terms of the differences, one more slide which will help you get some more clarity. Let me remove this annotation. Yeah. So sensory memory, it is the initial stage at a starting point. As you can see here, it is the initial stage at a starting point, and it has capacity to store all sensory experiences. So it can store. It has an exact copy of the input, allows connected and continuous perception of the world. And for you to register this, it hardly lingers for a few seconds. You can see that, right? Either iconic memory through your eyes or the echoic memory through your ears. That's what we discussed. And from there, selectively, it goes into the short-term memory. Now, this is very temporary. And for you to move from sensory memory to short-term memory or working memory, let's call it working memory. What is the most important thing? I have mentioned it a couple of times. So for you to move information from sensory memory to working memory, what is the most important thing? I want a couple of responses, whoever is following. What is the most important thing for you to move from sensory memory to short-term memory? Wonderful, Hari. Yes, attention. Yes, attention. Now that you are paying attention, you're able to replicate it. Yes, good. So you need to pay attention to move information from sensory memory to short-term memory or working memory. Now from working memory to long-term memory, it's not going to be easy. You have to do it through conscious processing. Here, processing comes into the picture. Again, this is where you need your internal intelligence and all of that. So processing becomes very important. Once it goes into the short-term, long-term memory, it can stay for a very long period of time. And most importantly, you can retrieve at any point of time, which can be used in situations like exams and interviews. Okay. So this is exactly how the memory flow operates. So yeah, there are multiple ways I showed you, right? So whenever you kind of need it, you'll get it back. This is the process of encoding. Encoding is one thing which I have to understand. And okay, this is one more aspect which you should know. So when you talk about encoding, it is the process of converting sensory input in a form that can be stored in the brain. It cannot be directly stored. As I said, a computer can only store in zeros and ones. Your memory also can store in a particular format. Now, there are 3 or 4 ways of encoding. The first one is called semantic encoding. As of now, when I'm talking, a lot of you are focused on the acoustic encoding. What is acoustic encoding? You are listening to my words as it is. You're not processing them. Now, what is semantic encoding? You are actually focused on the meaning, not the angrezi, the essence. You're focusing on the meaning and understanding of information. I'm saying something, you're paying attention, you're putting in processing, and then you're trying to break it down and add some meaning and attachment to what I'm saying. So this is semantic encoding. Now, semantic encoding is the most powerful form of encoding because acoustic and visual, it just stays for a short term. It won't add a lot of value. So it is important for you to make sure this is active. Semantic encoding is active, acoustic and visual is passive. In fact, it's influencing encoding. One is attention, as I mentioned. Information is attended, which is attended, is more likely to stay longer. And then level of processing, deeper processing, such as understanding and making connections. When I said that, when you have that internal attention, internal intelligence, it will be easy for you to keep making connections. That is the reason why, at some point of time, you need to bulk up your understanding of the subject. From there, it becomes easy to capture more and more subject. Okay, this is about encoding. Next, storage. So these are the stages of memory. Earlier, we looked at the types of memory. Now we are moving into the stages of memory. First is encoding, the process of encoding in the first part. Next, storage. Once you encode the information, which is convert the information, it is stored. It is stored into either of this. Okay. So these two processes are correlated. So it's stored into sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. And what does or how is storage influenced? Now, repetition and rehearsal. This is the reason why, if you look at it at the beginning, I told you 5-time revision. This is exactly what it is. Repetition and rehearsal. Repetition and rehearsal. It cannot be going to the long-term memory immediately. When you do it for the first time, do it again, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time. That is when you will be able to move from short term to long term. So, guys, those who are trying this 5-time revision technique, 5 FTR, or all the day end revision and previous day revision, how many of you have visualized some level of improvement? Now, this is exactly what I'm talking about. We're talking about repetition, right? The same thing which we are making you do multiple times. You read it once through FBS, then day end revision, then previous day revision. So how many of you are experiencing it in the last 1 week? Whoever are following this technique, you can let me know. Right? This is exactly the concept. When I say repetition, it's not about knowing more. It is knowing more about what you already know. It is storing what you know for a longer period of time. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So you need to see when we say some technique, we don't feel the need to explain the whole basis. It takes hundreds of hours of research. So we don't have that time. But today I somehow felt because you're having a bad relationship with your memory. So that's the reason why we started with fall in love with your memory. That's the concept of today's Valentine. So yeah, so this is what actually happens when we make you do repetition and rehearsal. Now this you can experience it only when you do it multiple times of rehearsal. For 1 week, you follow day and revision and previous day revision, you'll be able to experience and understand it. Okay, this is one thing. Next, organization. So organization of information into meaningful patterns and categories. As I said, meaningful pattern, 5-step framework, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And emotional significance, emotionally charged events are often better remembered. Now, you add some sense of emotion to something. Let's say I kind of remember things very strongly because I take when I say an incident happens to you, there are two ways of processing it. Now you can let it go. Now 99% of the things I let it go, but 1% of things I add a strong sense of emotion. I'll attach a strong sense of emotion so that you'll never forget about it. So that you'll never forget about it. Let's say there is a student. Now a student, when he fails in the result day, now, emotion is not about crying multiple times or feeling guilty. Emotion is all about, okay, I put myself into this position. I put my parents into this position. I'm taking a very strong decision that I will never again put myself into the position where I have to wait for results. Now, when you say this to yourself, you remember this every time you sit to study. Now, this is what is the meaning of an emotionally charged event. Crying or seeking sympathy is not emotion, that is inefficient. So please understand, emotions are powerful. Emotions are very strong. Respect emotions. But this has to be charged and triggered in the right direction. When you do that, yes, it has a high chance of getting stored into your memory for a longer time. Okay, so this is the storage, and the third is the most important part, retrieval. Retrieval is the process of bringing stored information back into consciousness. This is where the examination comes into the picture. So whenever you're writing an exam, retrieval is the most important thing. We call it recall. Okay. So retrieval is often enhanced by using cues or triggers, right? So what are cues in the question mark in the question paper? Questions are your triggers. So questions are your triggers, and recognition is recall. I spoke about it in the morning itself. When you're writing an MCQ, all you need is recognition, because recognition involves identifying previously an information, while retrieving requires retrieving information without specific cues. Okay, recognition is a recall. That is the reason why for some of you MCQs are very easy. For some of you MCQs are slightly not as easy as you would find the subjective or objective thing. But overall, recognition and recall are two different aspects of memory. So you have to train them accordingly. Now, what are the factors influencing retrieval? One is context. So you cannot remember content without a context. You clearly have to remember the context. Otherwise, it won't stick. Now, what is the context? Question is a good context. Let's say if you blindly start studying auditing without a proper context, you may not be able to remember. That is the reason why we make people do index mapping and single page summary, where you know that there is a clear cut context of why you are studying what you are studying. So why creates a context for what and how. So that's where it is important. And state dependent memory, it's like when you're in a particular state of mind, you'll be able to think in a better way and store in a better way. Now this is where we capture things during the magic of morning. So magic of mornings, your emotional state will be slightly different because we make you go through that visualization technique. How many of you notice that you are in a different state of emotion after that visualization technique? Or whenever whoever has joined mom sessions regularly, how many of you notice that when you do the box breathing technique followed by the visualization technique, the next 1 hour at least, you're in a different state to receive information? How many of you noticed it? If you're done, mom, I want some responses here. So this is exactly what I'm talking about, where you are the same person, but it won't replicate every now and then because we are altering that state. Now, if you do mom session every 1 hour, that will work. But again, we have to know how much time and how much effort we have to put in. So this is exactly what I say, state dependent memory. The state of mind where you are, and this is exactly what works. Like the state which you feel is what I feel always without matlab, what you experience after mom is how I live every single minute. That is my state of experience. So that is the reason why I'll be able to do this seamlessly. Now it takes I don't know 10 years of work, but yeah. So for your context, you don't have to make it that deep. For the limited purpose of studies, make sure you kind of alter your state of mind before you capture information. That is going to make a magical difference. Okay, this is the next thing. And finally, when you talk about working memory, yes, short-term memory, working memory, this is something which you have to keep free, keep storing information and keep throwing it into the long-term memory. And there are other things like consolidation. When you study something across a period of time, we talk about the cumulative revision (CMR). So that is where we kind of do consolidation. When I say consolidation, you are bridging everything together. You are bridging everything together so that whatever you study during the week, it gets integrated, and that integrated subject is once again presented in the exam mistake tracker. Like some of you are done today, you'll be able to do it. So consolidation is an important thing. And in terms of neurological basis, there are I think you need not understand this about the neurotransmitters and all. As long as you understand consolidation, that is fine. So working memory and consolidation are two things which I want to pick up from this. And in terms of the execution, please understand remembering is not normal, forgetting is normal. If you look at a case study, he has cleared CA and he has mentioned that he has joined our program after saying that this is the last investment you have to invest, and you don't have to write one more attempt. And how did he clear? This is what it is. 5-time revision technique. I told you at the beginning, 5-time revision is the world's best technique for this exam. And focus block slots, attention again, FTR, attention, the ability to retain content for longer period. That's it. We changed 3 things for him, he cleared. I think he lost a couple of attempts or 3 attempts before. We just changed 3 things. 5-time revision technique, the entire revision process is sorted, focus block slots, and ability to retain content for longer period. We did not change it. We just did 2 things. The third thing automatically happened. And clearing exam is a natural phenomena with exemptions in all the 3 subjects. Okay, this is how it kind of works. And also, I'm not talking about someone who have given 2-3 attempts. I'm also talking about someone who has given 12 attempts, not able to clear 12 attempts is 6 years. 6 years. One group, 6 years. Still, we're able to help them crack in the 75 to 80 days. What changed? Mostly the memory part. Mostly. There are other things which we added, but mostly this is exactly how we're able to make it one last attempt. So for those who are yet to understand or trust the process, now this is the outcome. And all these numbers, which are driven on the successful mark sheets, are largely happening because of this revision part, because we make sure certain topics are revised X number of times. There is some part of the content, there's some syllabus in the subject which has to be revised X number of times, using which you can score these scores in the first 2 hours. You can pass in the first second hour itself, and which automatically gets reflected in the ultimate scores. Okay, that is the reason why revision is super important, and that exactly the reason why I wanted you to know a very detailed understanding of what we have just discussed. I'm quickly taking you through all the lines. Now, this is where I want to focus. Always pay attention to this. In the mentorship, yes, you have study buddies, so you can teach others. That is one thing which happens. But even if you're reading on your own, please make sure you practice doing. This is one. and the other part is 5 time revision is something which you definitely have to follow, because I can't. There's no better technique. The whole point is there is nothing which is beyond this. It's working magically. I believe 70% of students who are clearing mostly due to this. Mostly due to this. Again, it's a mixture of the mindset changes which you bring in through visualization techniques and a lot of clarity that is anyways there, and combined with this revision technique, it is working like magic. So this is what I wanted to cover in the last 40-50 minutes. So yes, so I'm bringing this to a conclusion here. Any questions? I hope the session has been valuable. Did you learn something? Okay, let's see what you have learned. Can I get mm, your key takeaways? Can you quickly type your key takeaways? What did you learn from the session? Think clearly and type. Think clearly and type. I want all of you to type. Don't write superficial information. 1 or 2 points about what you have learned. Key takeaways. Think fast. Type. Okay. Long-term attention. Yes. Okay. How memory goes from the sensory memory to the long-term memory. Yes. Avoiding internet actional distractions. Need to increase attentiveness for studying. Okay. Fine. It's different for different people. Yeah. Okay. As you're typing, for the rest of you, are there any questions, guys? Are there any questions which you have? Are there any questions, guys, which you have? Okay, I understand. So, in terms of the specific problem which you might be having with memory, the specific problem which you might be having with memory, I may not be able to answer unless I know what is happening. So, right now, I think this is not a session where we can listen from you because there are other students present. In the interest of the time, if you need more attention onto your problem, especially about the memory process, what we can do is we'll offer you a slot. Like this is something which you can book and do it at a later point of time. So we gave you a consultation call for all those who wanted our attention onto your problem. Okay, if you want that attention onto your problem, you can book a call. So this is for outside students. For the existing students, anyways, the process is happening. By the end of the 21-day challenge, it will be sorted. For students who are not able to access our programs or who are not in a position to get enrolled in one of that. So if you want better attention, so I'll share link. You can enroll, but you have to be present during that time. There are no cancellations. There are no extensions. If something is more important in life, please proceed forward. Our team is very busy, so we respect our time. We also respect your problem. If the session exactly starts at a particular time which is promised, and you'll be able to get some level of clarity. So if you want that, please book a call. I have shared the link here. And apart from that, any other questions which I have to handle? You can unmute yourself and ask the question. Any question which I have to handle right now? Yeah. So the offline students and others, how many of you have submitted your exam mistake tracker? How many of you have submitted your exam mistake tracker? Okay, let me check them. Okay, let me quickly check your trackers. Let me share the screen and check. guys, one is this one. Okay, so in terms of the practical application of the memory part, so this is something which will help you actively engage your mind to retrieve it continuously. You're storing information into the long-term memory. That is one which is happening. And every single time you're retrieving, you're creating a pathway between your long-term memory and working memory. If it is directly happening in the exam, it's not going to work. Imagine how can you reach a place faster from point A to point B? Only when you do it multiple times, A to B, B to A, A to B, B to A. When you do it multiple times, the process becomes faster. So that is the reason why we make you do the same thing. Let's say India is 103. If you're directly trying to recollect on the day of the exam, you don't know the route. It looks unfamiliar. But when you do a neural pathway multiple times, you're thinking about this, you're writing, recollecting, writing, recollecting, writing. When you do it 4 or 5 times before the exam, on the examination day, wouldn't it become easier? Wouldn't it become faster? Is it making sense? You're able to understand what I'm talking about? Making sense, guys? If you do it A to B, do it faster, or if you do it multiple times, would it be faster on the examination day? So this is exactly what we are doing through this multiple times. Okay, this is one thing which you have to clearly understand when it comes to your memory. So all those who are still struggling with the memory part, so the moment you wake up in the morning, you have to do this, where you submit everything you remember from the previous day. You just have to spend 10 days, 10 minutes per day, and this is sorted. This is exactly what has to happen. So this is number one. And apart from that, the exam mistake tracker, yeah. The link is shared here for outsiders, for those who don't have access to all of this. Okay, so let's look at how Twinkle has attempted. So today she has written the exam auditing, got little anxiety, evaluated, I'm thinking P is strong, but not able to identify the class correctly, need to write fast. Okay, it is very important, guys. This is very, very important. This should not happen on the examination day. Now, these exams are not about marks, these exams are about mistakes. Please understand, these exams are not about marks, about mistakes. So, two, three things. One, she realized she's not able to write fast. Two, she thought she's good at PE. That's what she told yesterday because she has watched already the lectures. But the reality is she's not able to identify the class correctly so that she can rectify it. Now, when you're directly doing it on the day of the exam, you'll correct in the next attempt. No, you have to correct in the current attempt, which means you have to write the exam much before it actually happens. The total mark attempted this one, and it's a decent score. Good. Now, reason for choosing the first question because she has some command in PSG audit. Now, we are making them work on the decision making process. Why are you choosing this particular question in the main exam? Because she said, I have some command in PSU. That is the reason why I picked it up. And what happened to the answer in comparison to the suggested answer? Now, she has mentioned what happened here. There are some things which are not matching. So, overall, she mentioned a score of 5 by 14. Now, what is the reason for choosing second question? So, out of the three parts, she is sure about one part, and the other part will be reasonably covered. She picked it up. So, if you can see, the first one she picked up, it was 5 by 14. Second one is was 4 by 14. But it was decent. Now, in terms of the scores which she has mentioned, the way or the rationale with which she chooses the questions are more or less right because she was able to choose the questions in the right order. So this is one thing, and she identified the mistakes. And overall, if you see, she realized that revision method is something which has to be picked up. And in terms of takeaways, so not able to correctly identify the class. So this is one very important. And she mentions some separate sections are not, this particular section is not covered properly, and more syllabus has to be covered. And she also attached mock sheet. This is decent because next week it is going to pick up. Now I believe Dikshita has done taxation. I could have been a little quicker on solving the questions. Number of questions solved. What 4 questions I believe. Yeah. And the first question carries 14 marks, and the longest one. I didn't want to start with this, but I wanted to get done with this. Okay. So this is a very wrong way of attempting when you because it's not like you're you addressing your internal or complex problems has to happen before the exam, not during the exam. So when you're not comfortable with a particular question, always start with the first question. It's not about the act of getting done with it. So it is important that you start with the right base, which gives the examiner a fabulous impression that you know something. So generally, if you're not comfortable, don't start. Even if you're comfortable, never start with the first question. When you talk about the compulsory one, but I hope that will be corrected later on. There is variation in the presentation in case of ordering items and providing. The working are mostly right. That's good. Okay. Anyway, she was able to do it well. In terms of choosing the second question, this was in bits. They were reasonably moderate on the level of hardness. Okay, this is fine. I think these are the three questions which you did. And in terms of takeaways, manage time, be quick in reading and figuring out which one to solve first. Yes. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. You need to understand which one to solve first. Yes. You got it right before I said it. That's nice. Don't start the answer without thinking. Yes. Yes. These are very good takeaways. Never ever start the answer without thinking. Frame and do it. It's good that you picked it up. Good. Anurag, it was good and I gained a lot of confidence after writing this. And yeah, so fair value measurement, and then this is the reason why you're choosing it. Second question, this is the reason why you're choosing it. Third question. So Anurag, I hope you understood the reason why we wanted you to do this, because consistently you're saying I did not take coaching, I did not take coaching. No, that is irrelevant. It is important that you go through a process, you go through index mapping, you cover some standards, you'll be able to write it. So don't worry too much about the source of learning as long as you're doing active learning. That is the reason why it is. So more course and minor adjustments, if taken care, it is fine. How to cover the pending. That's what it is. So the point is, passive preparation, it looks easy, but it takes more time. Active preparation, it looks complicated, but it takes less time. So this is what I'll leave it to you. So there are some topics which you can do passive preparation by watching lectures. Other things you can continue doing the way it is. Also, as I said, once you're done with this, probably we'll have one session tomorrow sometime. So that is where you'll get further clarity on what has to happen next. Now, in terms of the Mitra's paper, who has written SFM, you are able to answer a good number of questions. So why did you choose the first question? It had a question on portfolio management, business valuation, startup. Okay, this is the reason why you choose up. Second, it has a question on mutual fund. So in terms of answering, okay, I think you had a basis for choosing different questions. That is totally fine. And overall, you have to focus on the learning methodology to start with the question. Yeah, everybody is going through this mistake because you're not thinking clearly. Always start with the question which gives you a good base. Don't start with a random and ridiculous question. This is one thing. I'm not prepared, you're still able to attempt it. This is good. You're able to attempt some topics which are not prepared. And finally, to focus on portfolio management. Yes, clear. So that way, there are multiple takeaways from each and every exam. I just wanted to give you a understanding of how the process has to work. Every single week, 5 days, you study well. Day 6, you consolidate. I told you memory consolidation that happens to cumulative revision. Day 7, you recall, you pull it out information. We are doing it on a daily basis. You're consolidating information at the end of the day. You're consolidating information at the beginning of the day. You're pulling out information at the end of the day. And you're pulling out information at the beginning of the day. I'm giving an open challenge. This is on record. This is streamed on live YouTube. If somebody follows our techniques for 90 days straight, 90 days, it is impossible to fail. I'm telling you, it's impossible to fail for this exam. Impossible. Now, just do these two things: 10 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. That's it. Previous day revision, day end revision. There are hardly 1% students who does this. A lot of students who've cleared also won't do this because for random or various reasons, consistency is what hard. Consecutive consistency is hard. They do it for 3 days and then there is a gap. 3 days and then there is a gap. Consecutive consistency will create magic. So I hope this week we're able to summarize the journey beautifully. I'm really happy with the performance of all of you guys. So the part of the 21-day challenge, we'll once again meet tomorrow early in the morning. So we'll start with a new week and new targets. So those who wanted to take a break, like hardly we have any time left. So 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. is where I think once again I have to go back and get ready for tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll have a fresh start tomorrow. And those outsiders who have come for the first time, thank you for joining us. And I've shared the link in case you wanted our further extended support. So that's all we have for now. I hope you're able to pick up something. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining us.